Jesus is better. That's what Hebrews is telling us. That's what it's going to reinforce over and over and over through chapter 10. Today we're going to look at verses 1:4 through 2:4, kind of get the sweep of those before we dig into the details. So what the author is doing here is he's starting to make the case that Jesus is greater than the angels. He's going to focus on the angels in this section. But he develops that idea step by step. He's reasoning his way through it, and he brings us along as well. Isn't God gracious to do that, to cause us to think through and get in our mind why Jesus is better? The way he's going to develop this in verses chapter 1, verse 4 through chapter 2, verse 4, is prove that Jesus has a better name, a better relationship with God the Father than the angels, that he's worshiped by the angels, that the angels are, in fact, his servants. And then we end up with a so what. He kind of brings it home in chapter 2, verses 1 through 4. So what? So we'll walk carefully through these verses in the future, but today I wanted to focus on angels. I wanted to consider that because of his historical context, the author spends a lot of time showing Jesus is better than angels. During this time, there was really an intense focus on angels. They even developed the idea that there's ideas of personal or guardian angels that we had to be relying on. So I want to discuss that a little bit. Angels as a group were viewed in the Old Testament as God's intermediaries. He was the go-between. They brought messages to the prophets. They helped God's people. We see them punishing God's enemies. We see references to angelic hosts, or the hosts of heaven. These were God's, you can imagine them as kind of an entourage or an army who protected God's people, brought judgments to his enemies. Jacob, when he was at Bethel, seeing that ladder between heaven and earth, saw angels going up and down that ladder. Isaiah, when he saw the Lord high and lifted up, he saw angels surrounding his throne. In Revelation 4 and 5, the Apostle John witnesses angels, heavenly creatures, supernatural beings all around God's throne. So we see in the Old Testament that the angels were seen as being very, very active. When we come into the New Testament, we have some more development of angels. Our theology grows as God's revelation continues. In Acts chapter 7, verses 52 and 53, and in Galatians 3:19, we get the idea that the angels were actually intermediaries that brought the Mosaic law from God to Moses. So these angels were God's messengers for something that was significant for Israel because it really set them apart as a nation from all the nations around them. As we continue to dig through the Old Testament, we find that collectively angels are called sons of God. Never an individual angel, but collectively they're called sons of God, which means, I think, not that they're God's offspring as much as they're created by him. They're part of his family. They even share some of his character and attributes. We see the use of that sons of such and such on Jesus' lips when he calls James and John the son of thunder. Of course, he means that they have this shared characteristic with thunder of being boisterous, of being loud, of being attention-getting. So when we talk about angels being sons of God, we mean that they share some of those characteristics of God and they're used by him. Angels can be understood as intermediaries and guardians. They bear divine messages. They came to be known as agents of God's power, rulers over nations, champions of the righteous. After the New Testament, or up into Paul's time, we see this developing theology, not necessarily inerrant and infallible, but more speculative until we come to the rabbis. And the rabbis had a lot to say about the angels. And they developed, they saw the development of the theology around angels, and they became very cautious. In fact, they caution people, I can quote here, rabbinic writing, says, while angels can convey prayers and speak on behalf of God, rabbinic Judaism maintains that ultimately prayer is a direct matter between God and man. One rabbinic text explicitly says, when necessity arises, a man should not call on Michael or Gabriel, that is, on a mere angel, even a mere powerful angel, but he should call on me, that is the Lord, and I will answer him. So this is what we see is this development of this supernatural view of angels, perhaps even supplanting God as a helper, a sister, a protector. So when we come to the New Testament, the original audience may have been tempted to view Jesus as this exalted angel, or perhaps just a better alternative to the angels, rather than what he is. And he is so much more than that. And that is the point that the author is going to make. So, we've gone through periods of Christian history that we have looked and been tempted to look at angels as something that we can depend on or rely on or go to in prayer. There was a time several years ago, perhaps it's still popular now and I'm just not aware of it anymore, but we had all kinds of little angelic representations and stories about angels helping people and even supplanting the Lord in our devotion. Today we have other things. Other things encroach upon us that take us away from Jesus. Horoscopes. I know Christians who are still reading and really believing horoscopes and somehow melding together this idea of horoscopes in their Christian faith, which is just wrong. If you do that, I'd say you need to pay attention to Jesus, not horoscopes. We have AI now. We have AI that we can chat with, voice AI that we can chat with. We have things that we can log on to and ask questions of. We can get help from so-called experts and comfort from people that maybe don't even know us personally, or comfort from people who counsel us from time to time. Sometimes people even flee to other kinds of spirits. They flee to the occult. They flee to witchcraft. They flee to magic. I pray that's not happened to any of you. Sometimes we are tempted to drift away, but the Lord is going to address that. When we come to this section of Hebrews, we're going to find that Jesus is really what we need and all we need for life today and in the future. He provides us forgiveness from sin. He ministers to us today, and he is going to reign and rule in the future. He is all we need and what we should be focused on. Let me also address, just from kind of a pastoral perspective, if you are going through a difficult time, if you are going through a trial and God seems to be silent, God seems to be absent, and you're tempted to go look at horoscopes or AI or counselors or the occult for help, let me caution you. I want you to remember back when you were a student in school, perhaps you still are, and you were given a test. Well, during that test, you were alone at your desk working through the test, and this teacher was silent. In the same way, God sometimes sends tests into our lives, and he seems to be distant. he seems to be silent. I think God is a good teacher. He knows when to back off and he knows when to speak up. Perhaps if you're going through a test right now, God is silent as you learn the lessons that that test is bringing you. God bless you, brothers and sisters. I'm praying for you. I have you in my prayers on a regular basis. If there's specific things that you'd like me to pray for, I'm no priest, but I'd be happy to join you in your prayers or in your church and their prayers for you. So just let me know. So God bless you, and next time we'll dive into the details of chapter 1, verses 4 through 6, I think is what we'll be on.